The crystal spires of Caltheria Prime stretched toward 3 moons that hung like jewels in the evening sky. Princess Vela stood on her balcony, watching the diplomatic shuttles arrive for what might be her last night of freedom. Tomorrow, she would marry a stranger from a primitive world to save her empire from destruction. Her father, Emperor Theron, had made the announcement 3 days ago. The Draxan hegemony was coming with their war fleet, and Caltheria's defenses would not hold. The Empire needed allies desperately, and the only species willing to help was humanity, a crude race that had barely learned to travel between stars. Vela touched the engagement bracelet on her wrist. It was made of simple steel, not the precious metals her people preferred. The humans had sent it as a gesture of good faith. She found it ugly and cold. "They say he's a soldier," her attendant Mireille whispered, while adjusting Vela's ceremonial robes. "Not even a proper diplomat." Can you imagine? A warrior attending a royal wedding. Vela could imagine it quite well. She had seen the reports about Earth, the planet humans called home. It was a nightmare world with violent weather, dangerous predators, and oceans that could swallow entire cities. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting each other before they finally achieved peace and reached for the stars. They were savages dressed in modern clothing, but savages with warships. Small warships, crude by Caltherian standards, but warships nonetheless. And right now, Caltheria needed every ally it could find. The Draxan hegemony had been expanding for decades, consuming smaller civilizations and adding their territory to the hegemony's vast holdings. Caltheria had always been too large, too well defended to bother with. But something had changed. The Draxans wanted Caltheria's agricultural worlds and industrial centers. They wanted the heart of the empire, and they were willing to fight for it. Caltherian military commanders estimated they had perhaps 6 months before the Draxan fleet arrived in overwhelming force. 6 months to prepare for a war they would almost certainly lose. Then the humans had arrived with their odd proposal. They would pledge their entire expeditionary fleet to Caltheria's defense, but they wanted something in return. Not money, or territory, or technology. They wanted a marriage alliance. They wanted one of their senior officers to marry into the royal family, binding the 2 species together in a way that could not be easily broken. Emperor Theron had agreed immediately. What choice did he have? And Vela, dutiful daughter that she was, had accepted her fate without protest. If her marriage could save billions of lives, she would endure it. The ceremony took place in the Grand Cathedral, a building that had hosted royal weddings for 3,000 years. Representatives from dozens of allied worlds attended, along with a delegation from the Draxan hegemony who watched with barely concealed amusement. Vela walked down the aisle in traditional white robes, her face covered by a sheer veil. At the altar waited her future husband. Captain Jinwoo Park of the Human Expeditionary Corps was not what she expected. He was tall, but not imposing, with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. He wore a formal military uniform that was simple compared to the elaborate outfits worn by other dignitaries. When Vela reached the altar, he bowed respectfully, following Caltherian custom perfectly. "Princess Vela," he said softly, "I am honored." His voice was gentle. She had expected something harsh, something brutal. This man seemed more like a scholar than a soldier. The ceremony proceeded according to ancient tradition. They exchanged vows in 3 languages: Caltherian, Human English, and the formal diplomatic tongue used throughout the galaxy. When Jin Woo placed the wedding band on her finger, his hands were steady and warm. "I promise to protect you and your people with everything I have," he said during his personal vows. "I will honor this union and the trust you have placed in me." Vela spoke her own vows mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She was thinking about the Draxan delegation, about the smirks on their faces. They knew this marriage was an act of desperation. The reception was elaborate but tense. Allied worlds offered congratulations, while clearly doubting humanity's ability to make any difference in the coming war. The Draxan ambassador, a tall creature with gray scales and cold eyes, approached Vela and Jin Woo during the celebration. "A lovely ceremony," the ambassador said, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "I must congratulate you both. Princess, you have married, quite bravely. Not every woman would bind herself to a Deathworlder savage." Jin Woo's expression did not change, but Vela felt him tense slightly beside her. "And Captain Park," the ambassador continued, "I hope you enjoy your brief marriage. When our fleet arrives, we will erase your pathetic human ships from existence. At least you will die knowing you tried to save your primitive bride's civilization." "We shall see," Jin Woo said calmly. The ambassador laughed and walked away. Around them, other guests pretended not to have heard the exchange. That night, Vela sat alone in her quarters, still wearing her wedding dress. Jin Woo had been given rooms in another wing of the palace, respecting her need for space. It was considerate of him, she supposed. She had expected him to demand his marital rights immediately, as was traditional in some cultures. She removed the steel bracelet and the wedding band, setting them on her dressing table. They looked so plain next to her other jewelry, pieces of art created by master craftsmen. These human tokens were functional, nothing more. Like humanity itself, she thought bitterly. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Princess Vela?" Jin Woo's voice came from the hallway. "May I speak with you?" She almost refused, but curiosity won out. "Enter." Jin Woo came in, still wearing his formal uniform. He looked tired but alert. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. Today was difficult. I married a stranger to save my empire from destruction," Vela said flatly. "How should I be?" "Angry. Scared. Resentful." Jin Woo sat down carefully in a chair across from her. "All of those would be reasonable." And quote. 1. And quote. And quote. "And yet you seem calm." "I volunteered for this assignment," he said. "You did not choose it. That makes my burden lighter than yours." Vela studied him. "Why did you volunteer? What could possibly make a soldier want a political marriage?" Jin Woo was quiet for a moment. "Because I believe in what your people have built. Caltheria has 3,000 years of peace, art, philosophy. Earth has 3,000 years of war, destruction, survival. When we reached the stars and found civilizations like yours, we realized what we had been missing, what we could become." "Beautiful words," Vela said. "But words will not stop the Draxon fleet." "No," Jin Woo agreed. "But my ships will." "Your 200 ships against their 40,000? Jin Woo smiled slightly. "You have never seen humans fight, Princess. We learned warfare on a world that tried to kill us every day. We are very good at it." "You will die," Vela whispered. "All of you. And I will be a widow before I ever truly became a wife." Jin Woo stood and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "I married you to end this war, Vela. I promise you. I will keep that vow." After he left, Vela sat in silence for a long time. Then, finally, she allowed herself to cry. Not for her lost freedom or her uncertain future, but for the gentle stranger who would die trying to fulfill an impossible promise. The first week of marriage was strange for Vela. Jin Woo made no demands on her time or attention beyond what was necessary for public appearances. They attended state dinners together, met with military advisors, and presented a united front to the allied worlds. In private, he remained polite and distant, giving her space to adjust. But Vela found herself growing curious about her husband. She began asking questions. "You are called captain," she said one morning during breakfast in their shared quarters. "But you lead the entire human expeditionary fleet. Is that not an admiral's position?" Jin Woo looked up from his datapad. "In human military structure, rank is less important than responsibility. I command our ships because I have the most combat experience, not because I have the highest title." Combat experience? You look young to have fought in many wars. I am 32 years old. I have been in military service since I was 18. Jinwoo set down his pad. Earth achieved global peace only 70 years ago. Princess, before that, there were always conflicts somewhere. I grew up during the last regional wars before unification. Vela tried to imagine it. Caltheria had not seen war in 3 millennia. Combat was something that happened on distant borders, managed by automated defense systems. The idea of a world constantly at war seemed impossible. How did you survive? She asked. We adapted. Humans are very good at adaptation. Jinwoo pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Our planet has extreme environments. Deserts, where temperatures reach 50 degrees. Arctic regions where everything freezes. Jungles filled with creatures that see humans as food. Oceans deep enough to swallow mountains. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to be stubborn. The hologram shifted, showing human history. Battles and wars, thousands of them, stretching back centuries. Vela felt overwhelmed by the scale of violence. Every human child studies military history, Jinwoo explained. Not to glorify war, but to understand strategy, tactics, and survival. We learn from our ancestors' mistakes. Caltherians study art and philosophy, Vela said quietly. We stopped training for war generations ago. Our defense systems are automated. Our commanders simply follow computer recommendations. I know. Jinwoo's expression was thoughtful. Your people chose peace. That is admirable. But it also makes you vulnerable. And humans chose violence? No. Violence chose us. We simply learned to master it, so we could eventually move beyond it. Over the following days, Jinwoo showed Vela more about human culture. She learned about guerrilla warfare, where small groups defeated larger armies through cunning and patience. She learned about tactical deception, using misinformation to confuse enemies. She learned about asymmetric combat, where weaker forces exploited the vulnerabilities of stronger opponents. It was disturbing. Caltherian warfare, when it existed, was straightforward. Fleets met in open space and exchanged fire until one side retreated or surrendered. Humans fought differently. They ambushed. They deceived. They took calculated risks that seemed insane to Caltherian logic. This is barbaric, Vela said after Jinwoo explained a historical battle where human forces had pretended to retreat, luring their enemy into a trap. Yes, Jinwoo agreed. It is. But it works. And when survival is at stake, effectiveness matters more than honor. The conversation troubled Vela. She had married a man from a culture that valued survival over dignity. What kind of husband would that make him? But Jinwoo continued to treat her with kindness. He asked about her interests, listened when she talked about Caltherian literature and music, and never pressured her for physical intimacy. He was patient, gentle, and respectful. It made the contrast with his warrior nature even more confusing. 2 months after the wedding, long-range sensors detected the approaching Draxan fleet. 40,000 warships. Just as intelligence had predicted. The Caltherian military scrambled to prepare defenses, while allied worlds sent what reinforcements they could manage. In total, Caltheria would face the Draxans with 25,000 ships and humanity's small fleet of 200 vessels. The odds were impossible. Everyone knew it. Vela attended the strategy meeting in the Imperial Command Center. Military advisors presented defensive plans, all of which involved retreating slowly, buying time, hoping for diplomatic intervention that would never come. The mood was grim. Jinwoo stood and requested permission to speak. I propose the human fleet operates independently, Jinwoo said. Give us operational freedom to engage the enemy on our terms. The Caltherian Supreme Commander, Admiral Veskar, looked skeptical. Captain Park, your ships are valuable, but 200 vessels cannot significantly impact a battle of this scale. You would be better integrated into our defensive formations. Our ships are small and fast, Jinwoo replied. In your formations, we would be wasted. Let us fight the way humans fight. And how is that? Veskar asked coldly. Unpredictably, the admiral dismissed the idea. Jinwoo would command a small defensive wing, nothing more. The human contribution would be symbolic, a gesture of alliance that might boost morale but would not change the outcome. That evening, Vela found Jinwoo in their quarters, reviewing tactical data. He looked tired and frustrated. They do not respect you, she said. They think humans are primitives, playing at war. I know. Then why volunteer for this? Why marry me and come here to die? Jinwoo looked at her directly. Because someone has to stand between civilizations like yours and those who would destroy them. Humans understand violence. We have lived with it our entire existence. If we can use that knowledge to protect something beautiful, something worth preserving, then all those centuries of suffering mean something. Vela felt something shift inside her. This man was not a savage. He was complicated, thoughtful, burdened by his species' history, but trying to transform it into something meaningful. You truly believe you can stop them, she whispered. No. Jinwoo smiled slightly. I believe I can make them regret coming here. No. 3 weeks later, the Draxan fleet arrived at the outer system. Their ships filled the sensor displays like a swarm of insects, blotting out the stars. Caltherian forces took defensive positions around the inner planets. Human ships, ignored by high command, positioned themselves near the asteroid belt, seemingly out of the main battle area. Vela stood in the command center, watching as the Draxan fleet advanced in perfect formation. Beside her, Emperor Theron looked pale and exhausted. This is the end of everything we built, he said quietly. On the tactical display, the human ships suddenly accelerated. They broke formation and raced toward the Draxan fleet at speeds that seemed suicidal. What is he doing? Admiral Veskar shouted. Those ships are going to be slaughtered. Vela watched the display, her heart pounding. Jinwoo's flagship, the Indomitable, led the charge. He is keeping his promise, she said softly. The human fleet crashed into the Draxan vanguard like a hammer. And the galaxy learned what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The battle began exactly as the Draxan hegemony expected. Their massive fleet advanced in textbook formation, preparing to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numerical superiority. Caltherian forces held defensive positions, ready to execute a slow, orderly retreat. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then the humans attacked. Jinwoo's 200 ships accelerated to dangerous speeds, pushing their engines beyond recommended limits. They should have been destroyed in the first exchange of fire. Instead, they scattered like birds startled by a predator, each ship moving independently in patterns that seemed random. They have lost formation discipline, Admiral Veskar observed from the command center. Those ships will be picked off one by one. But that was not what happened. The human ships moved erratically, changing velocity and direction in ways that made targeting nearly impossible. Draxan weapon systems, designed for precision, kept firing at positions where human ships had been moments before. The humans wove through incoming fire, like dancers. Vela watched as Jinwoo's flagship, the Indomitable, dove straight into a cluster of Draxan destroyers. Instead of engaging all of them, it fired everything at a single target, the destroyer leading the formation. The ship exploded, and debris scattered into the paths of nearby vessels, forcing them to break formation. He is targeting their command structure, Vela realized. She was right. While Caltherian forces traded fire with the Draxan main fleet, human ships hunted command vessels and communication arrays. They ignored smaller ships to strike at the fleet's nervous system. The Draxan admiral tried to adapt, pulling command ships back into protected positions. Jinwoo responded by having his ships broadcast false sensor signatures. Suddenly, 200 human ships appeared to be 2,000. The Draxans divided their forces to counter threats that did not exist. Brilliant, Emperor Theron whispered. He is making them see ghosts. The battle continued for hours. Human ships took terrible losses. Their small vessels could not withstand direct hits from Draxan weapons. Vela watched as ship after ship went dark on the tactical display, their crews dying in the cold of space. But every human ship that died took multiple Draxan vessels with it. They used ramming attacks, suicide runs, and point-blank fire exchanges that no sane commander would authorize. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose. "Why are they doing this?" Mireille asked, standing beside Vela. "They must know they cannot win. They are buying us time," Vela said. "And showing the Draxans that this war will be more expensive than they planned." Jinwu's tactics were brutal and effective. He led a group of ships into an asteroid field, luring Draxan pursuers into the maze of rocks. The humans navigated the field with reckless confidence, while Draxan ships, designed for open space combat, collided with asteroids and each other. When Draxan commanders tried to ignore the humans and focus on Caltherian forces, Jinwu launched strikes against their supply ships. Ammunition carriers and fuel tankers exploded, forcing the Draxans to divert resources to protect their logistics. The Caltherian military watched in stunned silence. This was not warfare as they understood it. This was chaos, creativity, and calculated madness. "Their captain is insane," Admiral Veskar muttered. "He is trading lives for minor tactical advantages." "He is trading lives to protect ours," Emperor Theron corrected. 6 hours into the battle, the human fleet was down to 80 operational ships, but the Draxan formation had been shattered. Their admiral was dead, killed when Jinwu's forces destroyed his flagship. Communication between Draxan ships was fragmentary. They had lost 200 vessels to human attacks and dozens more to friendly fire and collisions. The Draxan second-in-command ordered a tactical withdrawal to regroup. It was not a retreat. Not yet. But it was an admission that humanity was more dangerous than anticipated. Provided, fodder men. Quote, Caltherian forces, inspired by human ferocity, pressed the attack. Working together, the Allied fleet drove the Draxans back to the outer system. It was not a victory. But it was not the crushing defeat everyone had expected. Then disaster struck. Vela was watching the tactical display when Jinwu's flagship suddenly stopped moving. The Indomitable had taken damage throughout the battle, but it had remained operational. Now its engines were dark, its weapons silent. "Status on the human flagship?" Admiral Veskar demanded. "Life support failing," a technician reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks. They are venting atmosphere." Vela felt her breath catch. Jinwu was dying out there in the dark. "Can we send rescue ships?" she asked urgently. "The area is still contested," Veskar said. "Any rescue attempt would risk additional casualties." "I do not care about risk," Vela shouted. "Send ships now." Emperor Theron put a hand on her shoulder. "Daughter, we cannot lose more vessels for what? For my husband? For the man who just saved this fleet?" Vela pulled away from her father. "I am going myself." "Force? Absolutely not," Veskar said. "You are crown princess. I cannot allow." Vela was already running toward the hangar bay. Behind her, she heard her father shouting orders, heard guards trying to follow. She did not care. Jinwu had promised to protect her people, and he had kept that promise. Now she would keep hers to him. She commandeered a small diplomatic shuttle, overriding the security locks with her royal access codes. The pilot tried to stop her, but she knocked him aside and sealed the hatch. She had trained on small craft as a girl. The controls came back to her quickly. The shuttle launched before anyone could stop her. Vela pushed the engines hard, racing toward the debris field, where the Indomitable drifted. Space around her was filled with wreckage. Destroyed ships from both sides floated like monuments to the dead. Vela navigated carefully, avoiding debris that could tear her small shuttle apart. She found the Indomitable by following its emergency beacon. The ship was badly damaged, its hull torn open in several places. Atmosphere crystallized into ice as it vented into space. Vela docked with the least damaged airlock and forced her way inside. The corridors were dark and cold. Bodies floated in zero gravity. Human crew members who had died at their stations. She made her way to the command deck, following emergency lighting. The door was jammed. She kicked it repeatedly, until it gave way. The command deck was a disaster. Consoles sparking, walls buckled, blood floating in red globules through the air. And there, strapped into the captain's chair, was Jin Woo. He was badly wounded. A metal shard had pierced his side, and his left arm was clearly broken. But he was conscious, and he was talking into a communication device. "Rescue teams to Section 7, he was saying calmly. 3 crew members trapped there. Prioritize them before. He noticed Vela. "What are you doing here?" "Saving you," she said, her voice breaking. "I am fine. Get back to safety." "You are not fine. You are bleeding, and your ship is falling apart." Jinwoo looked at her with those calm eyes. "My crew needs help. I stay until they are safe." Vela wanted to scream at him. Instead, she activated her emergency beacon. Medical teams en route to the Indomitable. Princess Vela requests immediate assistance. Jinwoo sighed. "You should not have come, and you should not have nearly died." Vela shot back. She moved closer, examining his wounds. "Why did you not retreat when your ship was damaged?" "Because the battle was not over. Because my crew was still fighting. Because I promised you I would protect your people." Jinwoo coughed, and blood flecked his lips. "A captain does not abandon his post, even if it kills him? Especially then." Rescue ships arrived within minutes. Medical teams swarmed the Indomitable, stabilizing the wounded and recovering the dead. Jinwoo refused treatment until every one of his surviving crew members was accounted for. Finally, as they loaded him onto a medical shuttle, he looked at Vela. "Thank you for coming for me." "Thank you for keeping your promise," she replied. The battle was over. The Draxan fleet had withdrawn to the outer system to regroup and repair. They had lost far more ships than anticipated, and their commanders were reassessing their strategy. Caltheria had won time, bought with human blood. In the command center, military analysts were already studying Jinwoo's tactics, trying to understand how 200 ships had created so much chaos. But Vela was not in the command center. She was in the medical bay, sitting beside Jinwoo's bed as doctors worked to save his life. Jinwoo spent 3 weeks in the medical center. His wounds were severe but not fatal. Human physiology, the doctors discovered, was remarkably resilient. His bones healed faster than expected, and his body fought off infections that would have killed a Caltherian patient. "Your husband is built like a tank," one doctor told Vela. "Whatever evolution did to humanity on that death world of theirs, it made them very hard to kill." Vela visited Jinwoo every day. At first, she told herself it was duty, maintaining the appearance of a concerned wife. But she knew that was a lie. Something had changed during the battle. Watching him fight for her people, seeing him refuse evacuation until his crew was safe, she was beginning to care for this strange, lethal, gentle man. Jinwoo, for his part, seemed surprised by her attention. "You do not need to be here," he said one afternoon. "I am sure you have more important responsibilities." "Nothing is more important than this," Vela replied. She was sitting beside his bed, reviewing tactical reports on a data pad. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you rest instead of trying to command your fleet from a hospital bed." Jinwoo smiled slightly. Guilty. They fell into a comfortable routine. Vela would bring him reports, and they would discuss the military situation. The Draxan fleet was regrouping, but seemed hesitant to attack again. They were reinforcing their positions and calling for additional ships from their home territory. "They are afraid of you," Vela said one day. "They should be," Jinwoo replied. "We showed them that this war will cost more than they anticipated. Every human ship they destroy will take several of theirs. That changes their calculations, but they still have overwhelming numbers." When they attack again, we cannot hold them. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. There are other ways to fight. As his strength returned, Jinwoo began sharing more about human culture. Not just military history, but art, music, literature. Vela was surprised by the depth of human creativity. I thought your people only knew warfare, she admitted. War teaches many things, Jinwoo said. Strategy, sacrifice, the value of life. But it also teaches us what we are fighting for. Humans create art because we have seen too much destruction. We write poetry because we need beauty to balance the horror. We make music because silence after battle is unbearable. He showed her human poetry from various eras. Some of it was about war, but much of it was about love, loss, hope, and redemption. Vela found herself moved by the raw emotion in the words. Your people feel things deeply, she observed, perhaps too deeply. It makes us passionate, but also dangerous. Strong emotions can drive you to protect what you love, or destroy what you hate. Jinwoo looked at her seriously. That is why discipline is so important in human military training. We learn to control our emotions, channel them into focus. One evening, Vela asked the question that had been bothering her. Why did you stay on your ship when it was damaged? You could have evacuated. Your crew would have understood. Jinwoo considered his answer carefully. On Earth, we have a concept called leadership by example. A commander, who asks others to risk their lives, must be willing to risk his own. If I had evacuated while my crew was still in danger, how could I ever ask them to follow me again, even if it meant your death? Especially then. A leader who values his own life above his people's trust is not worth following. Jinwoo reached out and took her hand. Vela, I know this marriage was arranged. I know you did not choose me. But I chose to honor it. That means protecting you and everything you care about, even if it costs my life. Vela felt tears forming. I do not want you to die for me. Then I will try very hard to live for you instead. The moment was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the medical center. Vela's communication device activated immediately. Princess, you need to return to the command center, Admiral Veskar's voice said urgently. The Draxons are moving again. Intelligence suggests they are preparing for a second assault. They have called in reinforcements. End quote. Jinwoo was already trying to get out of bed. Vela pushed him back down. You are not healed yet. I am healed enough. My fleet needs me. They argued briefly before Vela gave up and helped him dress. Together, they made their way to the command center, where a grim situation awaited them. The tactical display showed a massive Draxon fleet assembling in the outer system. Intelligence estimates indicated over 80,000 warships. The hegemony had committed twice their original force, determined to crush Caltherian resistance completely. This is unsustainable, Emperor Theron said quietly. Even with our allies, we have perhaps 30,000 operational ships, and the human fleet is reduced to fewer than 80 vessels. All eyes turned to Jinwoo. He studied the tactical display in silence. We cannot win a conventional battle, Admiral Veskar said. I recommend we begin evacuation of core worlds and prepare for a fighting withdrawal. No, Jinwoo said firmly. There is another option. What option? Veskar demanded. We are outnumbered nearly 3-1. Your tactics were effective in the first engagement, but they will not work again. The Draxons have learned from their mistakes. Jinwoo turned to Emperor Theron. Your Majesty, I request permission to take a single ship into Draxon territory. No fleet support, no backup. Just one ship, and me. The room erupted in protests. Veskar called it suicide. Military advisors said it would accomplish nothing. Even Emperor Theron looked skeptical. But Vela understood. She had learned how humans thought. You want to strike at their heart, while they are focused on our borders. Yes. Jinwoo confirmed. They have brought 80,000 ships here. That means their home territory is lightly defended. I can disrupt their supply lines, destroy their shipyards, eliminate key leadership, make them bleed in ways that hurt more than fleet battles. One man cannot cripple an empire, Veskar scoffed. One man with the right skills and motivation can do more than you imagine, Jinwu replied. Humans have overthrown governments with small teams. We have changed history with individual acts of courage or violence. Give me 3 months. If I fail, you have lost 1 ship and 1 soldier. If I succeed, the Draxan hegemony will be too busy dealing with internal chaos to invade. Emperor Theron looked at his daughter. Vela, what do you think? Vela wanted to say no. She wanted to keep Jinwu here, safe, beside her. But she knew he was right. Conventional warfare would only delay the inevitable. Humanity's strength was not in fleet battles but in unconventional tactics, in doing what others thought impossible. I think my husband knows how to fight his enemies better than we do. The Emperor authorized the mission. Jinwu was given the Shadow Runner, a small stealth vessel with advanced sensors and minimal weapons. He would leave within 2 days. That night, Vela and Jinwu stood alone on her balcony, looking at the stars where an enemy fleet waited. You might not come back, she whispered. I might not, he agreed. I have only begun to know you, to understand you. Jinwu turned to face her. To care for you, Vela admitted. This marriage was political. But you have become more than a political ally. You have become someone I respect, someone I admire, someone I might even love, if given time. Jinwu touched her face gently. Then I will make sure to come back, because I would very much like to give us that time. He kissed her softly, and Vela kissed him back. It was their first real kiss, free from duty or ceremony. It felt like a promise. When you return, Vela said, we will start again. Not as strangers bound by politics, but as 2 people who chose each other. When I return, Jinwu agreed. The next morning, he left for Draxan space, alone. The Shadow Runner slipped past Draxan patrols like a ghost. Jinwu spent the first week observing, learning patrol patterns, identifying high-value targets. He did not attack immediately. Patience was a warrior's greatest weapon. Draxan space was vast, but it was also complacent. The hegemony had conquered so many worlds that they assumed no one would dare strike at their heartland. Their internal security was surprisingly lax. Jinwu's first target was a supply depot that serviced the invasion fleet. He approached during a shift change when attention was lowest. Using techniques learned from generations of human special operations, he infiltrated the facility, planted explosives, and disappeared before anyone noticed. The depot exploded with enough force to destroy 3 months' worth of supplies. Ammunition, fuel, replacement parts, all gone in an instant. His second target was a military communications relay. He hacked into the system, uploaded a virus that would corrupt fleet coordination data, and escaped before Draxan security could respond. The third target was a shipyard, producing new vessels for the invasion. Jinwu sabotaged the construction systems, causing cascading failures that would take months to repair. News of the attacks spread through Draxan space like wildfire. At first, the hegemony blamed internal dissidents. Then they realized a single operative was responsible. They began hunting for him, frantically. But Jinwu had learned from Earth's greatest guerrilla fighters. He never stayed in one place. He used civilian ships for transportation, hiding among ordinary traffic. He changed his appearance frequently. He struck at night, vanished before dawn. Back in Caltherian space, Vela monitored the situation anxiously. Reports from intelligence sources indicated chaos spreading through Draxan territory. The hegemony was pulling ships from the invasion fleet to protect internal assets. It is working, Emperor Theron said with amazement. One man is causing them to question their entire strategy. Jinwu understands fear, Vela replied. He knows that an enemy you cannot see is more frightening than one you can fight directly. Admiral Veskar, who had opposed the mission, grudgingly admitted it was effective. Their fleet is still here, but they are no longer advancing. They are waiting. Nervous. Half their forces are on high alert, burning through fuel and exhausting crews. Week 7 of Jinwoo's mission brought unexpected news. He had assassinated a Draxan regional governor, who was also a military commander. The governor's death caused a power struggle among Draxan leadership, with different factions blaming each other. He is not just attacking their military, Vela realized. He is destabilizing their entire government. Week 9 brought the most daring attack yet. Jinwoo infiltrated a Draxan military academy and broadcasted a message to all students. The message explained Caltherian culture, showed images of art and philosophy, contrasted it with Draxan conquest. He asked young Draxan officers a simple question. Is glory worth destroying beauty? Quote, 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 Art Ramen. Quote, quote. The message caused riots in several Draxan cities. Not everyone in the hegemony supported endless expansion. Jinwoo's broadcast gave voice to internal dissent that had been suppressed for generations. By week 11, the Draxan invasion fleet had not advanced. Their commanders were receiving conflicting orders from home. Some wanted to proceed with the invasion. Others wanted all forces recalled to protect Draxan space. Then, on day 79 of his mission, Jinwoo sent a message to Draxan High Command. It was broadcast on every military channel. Impossible to ignore. I am Captain Jinwoo Park of the Human Expeditionary Corps, the message began. For 11 weeks, I have operated freely in your territory. I have destroyed your supplies, sabotaged your shipyards, and eliminated your commanders. One human soldier has caused more damage than your entire military can repair in months. The message showed footage of his operations. Explosions at supply depots, shipyards burning, government buildings in chaos. Now imagine, Jinwoo continued, what happens when you face not one human, but millions. When you fight not one ship, but thousands. Humanity learned warfare on a world that tried to kill us every day. We perfected tactics in 10,000 years of conflict. We are offering you peace now, because we prefer it. But if you force us to war, we will bring you nightmares beyond your comprehension. The message ended with an ultimatum. You have two choices. Negotiate peace with Caltheria, and withdraw your fleet. Or face total war with humanity. Choose wisely. You have 72 hours. The galaxy held its breath. In Caltherian Command Center, Vela watched the countdown. 72 hours to learn if Jinwoo's gamble would work, or if it would trigger the very war they hoped to prevent. The Draxan response came after 68 hours. Their high command, facing internal chaos and terrified of full human engagement, agreed to negotiate. Peace talks began immediately. The Draxan hegemony agreed to withdraw their fleet in exchange for trade agreements and assurances that humanity would not launch retaliatory strikes into Draxan space. It was not a perfect peace, but it was peace. Jinwoo returned 3 days after the treaty was signed. His ship landed at the main starport, and Vela was there to meet him. He looked exhausted. 12 weeks of constant stress and danger had taken their toll. But he was alive. He was home. Vela ran to him, not caring about protocol or dignity. She threw her arms around him and held tight. You kept your promise, she whispered. I married you to end this war, Jinwoo said softly. I meant every word. They stood together while crowds gathered, cheering the human who had saved the Empire without firing a shot in fleet battle. Jinwoo looked uncomfortable with the attention. He had not done this for glory. That evening, Vela and Jinwoo sat together in their quarters, finally at peace. What happens now? Vela asked. The war is over. Our marriage served its purpose. Jinwoo took her hand. On our wedding night, you said you might love me, if given time. Do you still want that time? Yes, Vela said without hesitation. Very much. Then we start again. Not as strangers fulfilling political obligations, but as two people who chose to be together. Can it work? A human and a Caltherian? I do not know, Jinwoo admitted. But I am willing to try if you are. Vela kissed him. Then let us try. 1 year later, Vela and Jinwoo stood before a joint session of the Caltherian Senate and Human Expeditionary Council. Together, they announced a new initiative. Cultural exchange programs where Caltherians would teach humans art, philosophy, and governance, while humans trained Caltherian defense forces in strategic thinking and adaptive tactics. Humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting destruction, Jinwoo told the assembled leaders. We came to the stars, hoping to learn creation instead. Caltheria showed us what is worth protecting. In return, we can teach you how to protect it. Our peoples have much to learn from each other, Vela added. Caltheria can teach humanity to build civilizations worth defending. Humanity can teach Caltheria to defend what we have built. Together, we are stronger than apart. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. Human instructors began training at Caltherian military academies. Caltherian artists and philosophers established programs on Earth. Two cultures, seemingly opposite, began learning from each other. Later that night, Vela and Jinwoo walked through the palace gardens. 3 moons hung overhead, and the air smelled of night-blooming flowers. Do you regret it? Vela asked. Volunteering for this marriage? You could have had a simpler life, Jinwoo smiled. I volunteered because I believed in what your people built. I stayed because I fell in love with the woman trying to protect it. No regrets. Not even when you thought you might die. Especially not then. Some things are worth dying for. You taught me that some things are worth living for instead. They stopped beside a fountain, its water reflecting moonlight. Vela leaned against Jinwoo, feeling safe in a way she had never expected. The Draxan ambassador was wrong, she said suddenly. About what? He called you a Deathworlder savage. But you are not savage. You are fierce when needed, and gentle when possible. You fight to protect, not to destroy. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. Earth made humanity hard because it had to. But hardness is not the same as cruelty. We learned to fight because survival required it. Now we can choose what to fight for. And what do you fight for now? Jinwoo turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. For the idea that warriors can become protectors and empires can become partners. Vela kissed him under 3 moons, in a garden on a world that had finally found peace. She had married a stranger to end a war. She had found a partner who became a one-man army when needed, and a loving husband when battle was done. Somewhere above them, human and Caltherian ships patrolled together, protecting the fragile peace they had earned. The galaxy was still dangerous, but 2 civilizations had learned they were stronger together than apart. And in that moment, in that garden, with that gentle, lethal, wonderful man, Vela knew they had found something rare. A marriage that began with duty and grew into love. A partnership that would shape the future of 2 worlds. The war was over. But their story was just beginning. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.